All right, everyone, let's do this. How are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, Lisa and I talk with Craig Pfunder. Craig is a guitar player, singer, producer, musical director, formerly of the band VHS or Beta. He currently works with Jake Shears as his musical director and guitar player. I met him a couple of years ago when we were out on the road together. Super cool guy, super interesting story. He took us back, talked a little bit about his upbringing, how he got into playing music for a living, and what he's doing now and what he's looking forward to. It was a lot of fun. Craig is, like I said, a super cool guy, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
Hey, I'm Craig Pfunder. I am a producer, musician, and music director.
All around cool guy as well.
Thank you so much. I'd say you're pretty cool yourself. We had a great time out on the road together.
We did. You know, I usually am closer to the sport acts. I start, just buddying up with them, and you guys were just hard not to just hang out with that whole tour.
It was a shame it was so short too.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been out there longer, but we made the best of it.
Yeah, we did, and we brought you guys up in conversation a lot on the following U.S. tour.
Right.
So
wishing we were there. Yeah. No, it was good to cross paths with you when you guys came to Louisville. That was awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I've spent the majority of my adult life in Louisville, Kentucky. I moved here basically I touched down here New Year's Eve of 1993. So my first full day would have been January 1 of 1994.
Yeah.
Which is a ways away, but I my family's all in Oregon. I kind of grew up in the South, in Georgia, and then my family moved to Oregon, and then I somehow ended up here chasing a woman when I was 18 years old.
Oh man,
yeah,
that old story.
Yeah. But it was an interesting kind of path. I always knew I wanted to do music, and my parents were like, "We'll put you through college. But if you want to do this whole music thing, you're kind of going to figure it out yourself." So I kind of went my own path and kind of ended up just playing music since I was that young, and somehow I've managed to keep it in my life in my 40s. So it's cool.
Right on, man. Well, we're going to talk to you about that. What we want to ask you first, we read this article about you that you were adopted from Korea.
Yep.
And you don't quite know your real birth date or your real age.
I don't.
How did that happen?
Well, I think that story would begin with, interestingly enough, an amendment to that story that you read, is that I actually did end up meeting my biological half brother through 23andMe, which is super weird.
Crazy.
Yeah. But, I feel like I won the lottery. I was likely to have just kind of dissolved into nothingness if I didn't get adopted from that orphanage, because it is now defunct. So there's no records. Uh-huh. There was a fire at the orphanage, and there's unfortunately no documents. So I was kind of like a true orphan, not like a stork dropped me off. I was definitely left at a building, and that was in the 70s. So there's no digital trail or there's nothing like that. Came to the States. My parents are both Caucasian. When I got to the States, we were living in Maryland. So for a couple of years lived in Maryland, and then we moved to Georgia. So growing up in an interracial family in Georgia was interesting in the 80s. So kind of wild. I saw KKK marches when I was a little kid in the city square. It was wild.
Yeah.
But adopted. I don't know my birthday. I celebrate it on November 14, which is a 1 in 365 chance that it's the right day. So I thought about doing this. I thought about doing this photo project where I took a picture once a day for a year, and as a celebration of my birthday, so that maybe I at least celebrated it on the correct day one time. So I might still do that photo. I think I took that to the people who are doing the Impossible Project, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do this project, and I'd love to get it funded by just give me the film." I think it would make such a cool thing, but they were like, "Ah, we don't have the resources to give you that." But so I might have to just save up some money and buy 365 enough film to make that project happen, which I think would be.
How did you pick the day that you celebrated?
So I believe it was the government gave me that day as like when I came over. I think they kind of. I'm not like a triad. They couldn't count the rings and so they basically had to assess my age based on my overall size and how I appeared to be. So the rough part of that is that I was malnourished when I came from Korea, so I was underweight and undersized, and so they gave me an age of 14 months old.
Okay.
My mother seems to think I was about 2, so I'm roughly in the ballpark, but I'm not like 5 years difference. Yeah. So I can't be any younger than I am, most likely, but I could be slightly older.
Okay. But hey, have you met any other relatives other than your half brother?
No, so I haven't met him. We've only exchanged some words online, and he did send me some pictures of my biological mother.
Yeah.
Who is passed. But no, I think he said he had a brother. I think whenever you open that kind of door, you just don't know. You just never know where you're going to open it and receive. So I've been a bit weary and
approaching with caution,
cautious about that. Because I don't know, but I hope someday that we could meet like face to face and say hi. That'd be cool.
Yeah. One more question to go along with that. How did not knowing your exact age or birthday, how did that shape like your identity or perspective on life? Like, did you know that young and you were always kind of wondering?
It was weird because, like I said, growing up in Georgia, you remember the standardized tests, you'd fill out like your race or ethnicity, and they didn't have, when I was that young, Asian or Asian American or Pacific Island. They had none of that. It was like,
we were other.
Yes.
We were other.
I had a circle in other. And so I didn't really feel like I had any sort of racial identity. All my friends were white. And in the South, it was very polar, like black and white. Yeah. There were pockets of Vietnamese kids. There were pockets of Latinos, Latin kids. And I just felt white because like I went to a school and I hung out with white kids. Yeah. And I knew I wasn't white, but I didn't know. It's not like I could get on the internet like you can today and just like dive deep into like understanding what culture is as a young kid. I just kind of got in line and I walked that path and, got made fun of a lot just because that's what kids do. But, it definitely didn't come into later in my life that I started to feel a bit more connected to my ethnicity, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah, it's weird. I mean, culture identity is growing up in a white house. My parents did their damnedest to try to like keep Korean food in my life. But there weren't just that many Korean restaurants in Georgia, it's like, so it's weird. Funny. Like, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny. I won't make this about me or anything, but if you're just listening to you, like it took me a long time to appreciate my Hispanic native roots, because growing up, it was such a thing that they laid frown on where I grew up. I grew up in, Central Texas where, so it took me years to appreciate. Now I fly the flag high.
Yeah. I mean, it's like weird when you're taught at a young age to maybe almost even kind of look down on that portion of yourself because of how much flack you got for it.
Yeah.
And that's, nowadays it's like, there's so much more awareness of why that's wrong. But when you're when you're back then, it was just like the wild, wild west for just like, yeah, it's just wild. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, man, let's get into your music. Was there a lot of music in your house growing up? Is that how you were gravitated towards it? Or did, you know?
There wasn't, that my parents had a record collection in the basement, but, and we had an 8-track player. So I will say there was a couple albums that found their way into my life at a very young age. Last Dance, it's a disco song. It's like a huge anthem. And I remember just playing that record on repeat. And that's the first time I really realized that I have an affinity for disco and dance music. And then I really kind of loved the Grease soundtrack. And I don't know why. I don't know. There's some bangers on that. Still, if you watch the movie, there's some like great songs on that album. But yeah, there wasn't a ton of music in my family. I think my big brothers and sisters had this big house party, and someone left a bunch of tapes. And it was back then where you could tapes were just like the thing, and you could tape a penny and mail in and get all these tapes back you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember that era. A few tapes that I remember were Echo and the Bunnymen's self-titled record, Oingo Boingo, and the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. And I just remember mowing lawns one summer with the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. It was like the only thing I listened to on repeat, just to get this cheap Sears guitar, and I did that. And I just saw Suzanne Vega the other day at a music festival, and she played one of the songs that was on that album. And I just just think my life kind of came full circle, that I'm somehow able to do this for a living. But that song was on that album. So was like The Smiths and In Excess, and so that kind of did shape a trajectory of where of certain amount of my tastes were to kind of fall into place. So that album was pretty big for me. More of it because it was counterculture, not because of the music as much. And in my adult life, I think I really gained an appreciation for the music. And then on the flip side of that, I was really into Sonic Youth. And so Sonic Youth is my entry into noisy punk rock music. And then Grateful Dead was my introduction to kind of folkier, rootsy music, if that makes sense. Yeah. I still love both of those bands to this day, though. Yeah. So when I was, I think, 18, I jumped in a bus with this guy and saw a bunch of Grateful Dead shows, and then moved to Louisville and started meeting people and making music.
So, I mean, you say like Sonic Youth and Grateful Dead, those are two completely different sides of the coin.
Yeah. Yeah. But, interestingly enough, there's a portion of Grateful Dead's live sets that were super droney and spaced out. And I think they called that version of the set Space.
Yeah.
They would just go off on a tangent, and there weren't really songs, and they would just kind of jam. So I think there's a bit of that spirit, at least in Sonic Youth, that experimental abandonment of rules and whatnot.
Yeah, Lisa and I hear a lot about space.
Yeah.
Space and drums and space, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But yeah, man, they're not records anymore. I'm regularly rotating, but definitely is part of my life.
Yeah. And you started your band VHS or Beta around that time?
No, so gosh, 94 was when I got here, and then I kind of played in a couple of noise bands. I really started getting into the West Coast noising bands like Angel Hair and Heroin and Gravity Records. I don't know if you know any of that stuff out from the West Coast. And then some of the bands that were on this label out of Chicago called Skin Grafts. So Melt Banana and US Maple. So I was really into this very small wedge of noise music. And I feel like I've mentioned this before in interviews, Louisville in the 90s, indie rock, Louisville's a seminal indie rock town, like Slint and Rodan and Palace Brothers. Like there's so much history of that, but we never felt part of that necessarily. But and the shows felt kind of stuffy, and we loved the music, but it was like we wanted to find something new. So that's when, VHS started as a noise thing, but kind of we started going to this nightclub where there were DJs playing, and it felt so like invigorating to do. So in 97 we were kind of noisy, and then we had found house music and integrated that kind of music into it, made a record like that. And then by the time our record came out on Astroworks, we had kind of melded all this stuff, like some of the dance stuff, but some of the new wave stuff and some of the noisy stuff. So I think that album was kind of an amalgamation of a lot of influences all at once.
Was that around the time when you met Jake Shears, or
yeah, it was actually.
Did he have any influence on you going towards more of the polished dance oriented music? Or
so funny story. Jason Sellards, he was living in New York, and we had played this club called Brownies on Avenue A, and this had to have been early 2000s, maybe 2000, 2001, as we were still kind of experimenting with our sound. And we played Brownies, and I didn't know this until we toured together, but he walked into that room off the street because he heard us playing. He was just like, man, I love this band. And then fast forward, our record, they opened for us at the Mercury Lounge before they had a drummer. Oh, wow. And it was like, it was so funny to think about, because I just remember, it was just so long ago that happened. And then our records kind of came out at the same time in around 2004. And their record, I don't know if you remember that era, but that first Scissor Sisters record went crazy, especially in the UK, but it did its thing here. And they were kind enough to bring us out on tour when that record hit. But I didn't really get to know Jason on a really super personal level till he did his first record in Louisville, and I sessioned on it. So I basically moved back to Louisville from New York. I did about an 8.5 year stint in New York City because I just needed to get that out of my system. I had always wanted to live there, and I just did it, pulled the trigger. And when I moved back to Louisville, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to stay here, because there was a reason I left, and I didn't want to go back to that same situation. But Louisville had come a long way in the time I had left. So when I came back, I hit up a few people, said, hey, I'd love to get my head out of this breakup mode, and I'd love to get to work and do some music. And one of those people that responded was Kevin Reiterman, who is an old high school bandmate of mine, and he was running a studio out of here called La La Land. He was like, dude, I've got this project. This guy Jake Shears, who because of Scissor Sisters, he's doing his solo record here, and it's wild. It's totally weird and cool, and I'd love to have you on the record. It would help me to have someone else who he knows. And while we did know each other, we weren't super, super tight by any means at that point. But we did have a common centrifuge from which to talk about and to work from, which was those tours. And we have a lot of similar friends, and I know all the guys and people in Scissors. So it fell into place really, really nicely. And then when the record was done, I knew their manager, his manager, and they needed a music director and a band put together. So I did that for my band. All the work that would go into that role I've already done. So it was a nice fit. I just kind of fell into place with that, and I've been with him for about almost 8 years.
Yeah. So you were able to step right into that MD role.
Yeah. I mean, building the sessions from an Ableton perspective was something I felt very comfortable doing. It was just a nightmare, though, because Kevin didn't stem out everything at the mix phase. He just kind of handed me all these stems, and I had to group them all and compress some things and add reverb to other things and listen to the record and kind of, dude, that took me about 12, 13 hours every song.
Oh my God.
Because I was also building all the click stuff. So, we weren't tracking to a click for a lot of it. So I'm hand building click tracks per measure almost for some of it. It was wild. Yeah. So for all I get the way a record needs to feel and swing and move. But if you're going to use backing tracks, it helps to have to play to a click. Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you something. I'm going to back up a second. You said you went out to New York just because that's something you had to get out of your. Anyone, like you, I know you, man. You're a great musician. You're a great MD. Why is it either Los Angeles or New York? And why did you pick New York over Los Angeles?
Well, when I moved to New York, it wasn't to MD or it wasn't to do. It was to finish a record that I had started with an old bandmate for VHS. It was the last one we made together, and I just felt like I had run my course of Louisville. There was an entire young generation coming up, and I felt like New York wasn't as set in a certain age. Does that make sense? Like you could go to a bar in New York and be the youngest guy in your late 30s. You know what I mean? Like it's just that kind of city where you kind of can be whoever you want to be. And that was really exciting to me. And I had never lived anywhere besides a couple cities. So I was looking forward to it. As far as the question though, why is it New York or LA? It's just proximity. All the industries in those two cities, and Nashville now, I guess. But I just went to kind of just, I guess, sow my oats, and I always just wanted to live in New York. I know that's so cliche, but I just needed to do it, and now I realize like I could have spent 3 or 4 less years there. I mean, that city will eat you up and spit you out if you're not willing to do everything it takes to be there. And I love that city, but I'm so glad I don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the creative process behind Night on Fire and your big 20th anniversary?
Yeah, so Night on Fire was a snapshot of the band that was still writing as a 4-piece in a room. Like 4 people go into rehearsal space, pick up instruments, start jamming, record those parts. And there's a lot of cool, weird shit that came out of that. They're just sadly, like that era also had us kind of parting ways with one of the founding members. Just didn't end that well. But yeah, I listened back to that music because I'm having to learn that shit again. Yeah, it's 20 years of it. We almost didn't do the show, but I said, man, when does 20 years pop up again? It's like,
well,
yeah,
20 years.
Yeah, and another 20. It's like, yeah, not going to be around for that. But yeah, that era was awesome. Signed a record deal before the internet was really a big thing. It was there, but it wasn't like what it was about to become. Yeah. So it still felt like you remember sound scans?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we were still like faxing our sound scans from selling merch just so we could. After the show. The next day, we'd have to find somewhere or the hotel, we'd have to sound scan our stuff in. And we were still just touring our faces off. We almost took everything we could because that was the way you sold records then. That was the way, you were basically traveling salesman, and we did Duran then. Duran asked us to tour back then, and we were chasing a bus, and we did a bunch of tours on that first record. And while a lot of it was amazing, some of it was tougher than others. And that would be the last record we wrote that way because we parted ways with one of the members. But it's a special record for me just because of the people that gave us a chance to have it be a career, like 1 million people can make records and a million people will, and they just won't get that opportunity. And we were lucky enough to have that opportunity. And I really don't think, at that point, there wasn't a day that I took it for granted. I knew how special it was to be on a label with the bands we were on and being able to be offered international tours and playing the festivals we were playing. I mean, we showed up in Bogota and in Colombia and played a festival, their biggest rock festival there. And then we came back and we sold out like a 4,000 capacity theater, not having ever played there in Colombia. And it was like so wild to me that could ever happen, because we had slaved so hard to just get anyone to come see us in Salt Lake City or Boise or all the cities you play when you're a band trying to do it. So then we started playing a lot more in South America and Mexico, man. The fans there for us were some of our best shows ever were in Mexico and South America, for sure.
Yeah.
They love music down there, and they are rabid fans.
Yes, they are.
Dedicated.
What was it like for you to experience that level of exposure? How did you go from working your ass off and then actually seeing?
Well, I will say that I don't think I was ever in a band where we looked at each other and we said, we've made it. Like, we're done. You know, like, wow, we've done it. It's always felt like work, but those moments did feel life affirming. Like, it definitely felt like the universe was giving us a bit back for all the work we put in. Yeah, I mean, getting off that stage in Bogota, for instance, was like, I just do remember that being a different feeling. Like, it's something to play for a festival where the crowds can be a bit built in, right? Like, you look out and you see 15,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever, and it's packed, but like, I don't know if you're really there to see us. That's cool that you're here, but when you sell your own tickets and do that, it was great. It was great. I still loved I love those memories of that era, for sure.
You mentioned earlier, like going to South America and as an international touring artist, you'll understand this. I remember Bill Hicks, the comedian, once said like he would be in Germany and the UK and playing these huge theaters, 2,000 and 3,000 people would come to see him perform his comedy. He'd come here and he couldn't sell out some comedy place in a strip mall. Did you guys find that problem when you came back to the US?
Yeah, of course. Like, first of all, the US is big.
Yeah.
And unless you're telling your agent, hey, we're skipping B markets or even C markets, like we're just going to do these 2 or 3 handfuls of shows, then the routings could be brutal, man. It's like when you ask people how big is that band? It's like, oh, well, we can sell the Bowery Ballroom. Cool, that's great. Or we can sell this room in New York. But what are you doing in like Knoxville, Tennessee? Who's coming to see you in Knoxville? That's when you start to really get an idea of like how big your band is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't ever think it's a healthy thing to measure the yards with how big you are in LA, Chicago, New York, these major markets. Because we did great in all those, but eventually I had to be like, if this is going to be equitable, we're skipping some of these cities. We can't play them all. Yeah. All my UK friends that I tour with are like, oh man, tomorrow's like a 4-hour drive. It's going to be brutal. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, try getting in a vehicle driving from Seattle to like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Texas to Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a perfect one. If you're doing like Dallas or Houston and then you need to get down to a show in Atlanta, there's Birmingham, there's like a couple places you could stop, but
Biloxi.
Jake Shears, on his first tour, we stopped at Birmingham and played, I think, for like 19 people.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And that's with Jake Shears.
Yeah.
I mean, understandably, he had just kind of launched his solo career, but like all the other markets were sold out pretty much. Nashville, Atlanta, New Orleans sold out, but I guess Birmingham wasn't feeling the love.
Birmingham's always a little late to the party, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a great venue.
Yeah.
I think it was the drummer for Man or Astro Man owns that venue or runs it. Brian Teasley, I believe.
Was it the Jupiter or
Yeah, Saturn or Jupiter or
Saturn? Saturn.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I
Cool
knew
run.
it was one of those.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a nice venue. It's a nice venue.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What kind of stuff do you do outside of music to stay inspired and not go crazy?
Inspired. I love cinema. That kind of is also just like similarly musical. I have a golden doodle. I'm a recent dog dad.
Oh.
That keeps me sane. My wife keeps me a bit grounded and sane. On the flip side, she might also contribute to my madness. So, as they all partners do. I snowboard.
Oh, okay.
But that's obviously something I can only do at least here in the winters. I've been trying to get in the gym. I don't know how you guys deal with working out, but like it helps me. But the motivation of getting there and doing it is brutal sometimes.
Well, I talk about it a lot, and I haven't seen any games talking about it. So
It's the same thing, basically.
I mean, it's a bit less for me in games. It's more for me for like mental.
Yeah.
Just acuity. It helps me reset. Like even just like 30 minutes on the treadmill is super beneficial to my mental health.
Yeah.
But I bought the membership and I upgraded the membership, and it's because I thought it would help me get out there. And I'm just like, shit.
Yeah. Well, Lisa and I have a routine. We both live on the water. She lives about 3 or 4 blocks from me. We meet up and we go walk on the Hudson, and then we find a bench, and then we hate on people as they walk by.
That seems like
we'll see somebody running by, and I'm like, look at these people running.
Well, we love all the dogs, though.
Yeah, and then we just talk to the dogs. And say, but we just, as somebody runs by, we're like, who do they?
You guys don't have any animals?
I have 2 dogs.
Sick.
2 puppies.
Are they around?
Yes. Right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
No, they're in their crate right now. They're puppies.
Grab them.
Oh, look at this! This is a treat.
You don't want to grab your girls?
I don't know.
Okay. You don't want to give them their debut.
I have a picture.
Oh my God!
Come here, buddy.
And what's his name?
This is Max. Come here. Let's go.
How old is Max?
Well, Max likes to give big hugs. He is 5.5.
Aww.
Okay.
He's our mini golden doodle.
Oh.
Yep.
He looks tiny.
We were sold a mini. And this is what we got. Yeah. He's not the smallest dog in the world. Thanks, buddy.
Oh, we have 2 5-month-old puppies. I'd bring them in here right now, but then they would completely take over this whole interview.
Yeah. That's the energy of a dog, for sure. Cats are like, leave me alone. Dogs are like, let's do this.
Yeah.
But I love cats too. It's just we lost our cat of 16 years a couple months ago, and taking a break on the cats for a little bit.
I gotcha.
Yes, Lisa's a cat person.
I have my cat. He's
love cats
somewhere.
Love cats.
So how do you think your relationship with music has changed over the years?
Good question. It's gone, it's taken so many different weird turns in my life. Like, it started as something full of awe and wonder and excitement, like when you're a kid. And once I realized that I could physically do it, it stopped being like a dream. Like I wasn't laying in bed like, God, man, I would really love to learn how to play guitar. I put the work in, did that, self-taught, like just... And then it turned into something where when I was younger and playing in bands, it still felt like a dream. Like I had this goal to work towards. I'm dreaming about it. And then I finally got to a place in my life where it was paying my bills. It was that relationship with something I loved so much became something that was responsible for my well-being or not. And that's a weird place with with anything you do. As soon as it turns into that, it's great when it's successful, but when it's not as successful as you would like it to be, it can turn into something of a resentment even. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I wrote a song on one of our records called Breaking Bones, and it was about my feelings. I like kind of personified my feelings of my relationship with music in the industry. And there was definitely a place where I had to step back from music. Literally, I just had to be like, I need to get happy again with playing it, because I can't, every band has a beginning and an end, right? Like,
Yeah.
some, like some of the endings are sweeter than the others. Like, but when Bring on the Comets came out as our second record on Astroworks, basically in the middle of that campaign, all the funding, a company came in to EMI, drew a line, and said everything under this line we're cutting funding for. And that just happened to another friend's band. Like, they were on Elektra, they drew a line, everyone gone. And we were just about to do a European tour. I mean, we were getting offers in from like Kings of Leon, and the Bravery was going to take us out. We took them out. They were going to take us back out. And we were about to release a second single in a video. And like, that's when I was like, oh shit, this feels terrible. And I realized like how rocky the waters could be in my industry. I can't think of many other industries that are as dynamic that way. I mean, I'm sure acting, like it's good, it's not good, and so I guess my point of all this long-winded discussion is, I definitely was at a place where I was like resentful for certain things in life that you have no control over. But then I started kind of working anonymously on this project called Pixelated with my old bandmate, and we were producing house music. And I was like, I want it to be completely anonymous. No one knows who it is. We're just going to ask friends if we could do remixes of them and just put it out in the ether and just let it be there. And we're not going to do press releases. We're not going to do photos. We're not going to do interviews. It's just for the love of making music, because I need to start loving this process again. Like, I don't want to, every time I sit down at a guitar or piano or drum kit, think, I've got to write a banger. I've got to write a hit. Or like, I won't be able to afford my rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I did get to that place, and I did find a better place with it. But it's, that's why this MD thing has been so healthy for me, is because I don't have to make any of the creative decisions as an artist. I was able to fall into this role and understand what the artist's vision was and help that person get to where they want to be. And I was someone that was getting written a check and not writing the check.
Yeah.
So that did kind of allow me to realize that I can still be creative in this, and I don't always have to be the artist, which was cool. I've really liked that. And so I've also started doing production and recording bands, and that has also allowed me to be like, I don't have to put my name on this. But I can help you get where you want to be. So that's been super rewarding as well. So I'm taking my skill sets. I'm still working in the same industry, but I'm not necessarily feel the need to put my name as the top line.
You said earlier you're coming up on 20 years from your first major label, and did you think 20 years ago you would be saying like, we're getting ready to do a 20th anniversary? Did you think? I mean, every musician young, they talk about, when we play here, when we go on tour, I'm speaking to you as another musician. Did you see yourself 20 years from that day going, yeah, we're gonna be around in 20 years to do this?
I think one of my downfalls has been not always planning for the future. Some people are great at it. My wife is great at it. I am not as good at her at that. And I think why I'm saying this is that when I was making that record, I think I was just trying to live in the moment.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to be present, and I was trying to absorb what I was feeling, because I had worked so hard to get there. And I just was like, man, this is great. I'm loving being out on the road. I'm loving it. If I were smart, I would have taken all sorts of that money and put it in an account and bought a house with it, and then just let that equity grow, and then rented that house out and maybe take out a loan. You know, there's all these things you could have done, but I wasn't doing that. I was just focused on writing the music. And, you know, it's interesting. I in a weird way, because of my adoption, this goes full circle to the adoption thing. This is not something I think is a positive thing, but ever since I was a kid, my security blanket were really bare necessities in my mind. Like, as an adopted kid, I felt like there's something inside of me that's like, as long as I have food, as long as I have a roof over my head, like, I'm going to be okay. And that's not necessarily how one should think when they're preparing for the future 20 years later. I know this is a bit different than what you're asking, but, you know, I wasn't the kind of kid that was at that age thinking about 20 years. I was just, who knew. I'm glad I'm alive on this earth to have this conversation with you guys. Like, I'm really grateful that all the years of living in this wild industry that I didn't die from a drug overdose or wind up on some weird corner in Bogota and get like kidnapped. Yeah, I mean, shit, think about all the moments in your life that bad shit can happen, and it does to people. And I'm glad to be here. And that's part of why the 20-year show is happening, is because how many chances in your life do you get to celebrate with the buds that you made it with, and just take a night out and say, hey, you know, wow, what a good time. It's more, I want to play for the kids and the people that never get to see us and our old fans, but I kind of want to do it for myself too.
Yeah.
And the buds that we, you know, traveled the world with.
Yeah, there has to be a little bit of selfishness in that.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, you know, like.
Yeah,
You know.
I mean, I'm practicing all the time so that it doesn't suck for them.
Yeah.
You know, but like, it's going to be just somewhat of a reunion for us. And we always used to play this show on Thanksgiving weekend, when everyone was done with the turkey and shit, and Black Friday, we would book a show on Saturday night. And at this venue called Headliners here, and that's where I met my wife. And so we're doing it there. It's like a 700-800 cap room. It's somewhat of a homecoming for us, and I'm excited. I was worried though. The one thing I was like, man, I was telling my bandmate, I was like, dude, if there's just like 100 people there, it's gonna break my heart. It's gonna be brutal if we can't sell at least half the room, and half the room's already sold. So for this, and it's not till November, so I'm happy.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely help you promote it here.
Cool. All the people in Jersey definitely can come down.
Yeah.
No, I know you have. I know you have reach outside of Jersey for sure.
Tons of reach.
Real quick question, but before we let you go, you toured with Duran in 2004, and then, like we talked about before this, you recently toured with them again with Jake. What was the difference? What did you see the difference in the tours? Did you still have that excitement of when you were?
You know, it's yeah. I mean, I remember the night we got the news from our booking agent that we were accepted or invited. Here's a couple small stories. The first one would be, I had 103 fever. We were playing in Bloomington, Indiana, and we got the news, and I was so sick, and I was just so excited and I just found it to play the show. I was thinking about canceling it, and that show was killer. We got through it, and I immediately had the people drive me back to the hotel. So I was in the shower just shivering. Like, next day I was okay. But man, I was so excited to go on that tour. And then our first night of that tour was a hometown show here at a theater.
That's cool.
Somewhat of an underplay for them, but it was like first time we had played that room. And those shows are early, dude. Like all the union labor, it's like curfews, and like we were a band that was used to going on around 10:30 or 11 and everyone's juiced and like ready to dance. And we're on, I think at like 6:30 or something. First of two bands. There's no third middle act. It's just, we're on right before them. And I remember sitting in my dressing room staring at a bottle of Makers. I'm like, do I really want to drink this early? Did a shot. I had to get at least a shot in. I was like, calm my nerves. Hometown shows are stressful anyway. And we're sitting on the stairs waiting to take stage. And Simon Le Bon walks through. Or no, I'm in my dressing room. Simon walks in the dressing room. And he was just the sweetest. He said, man, we've got your CD on the plane. On the plane. and he's just like, I want you to know that we handpick all the bands we bring out and we love your record. And it's just, thank you for being out on the road with us. And I just could not believe, to be honest, I wasn't as big of a Duran Duran fan as maybe some of the other bands of that era, but I did like them. They were more my big sister's band.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments I was like, what the hell is going on right now? That did take the edge off a little bit. And then your boss came through and he's like, who's the bass player? And pointed, he's like, fucking wicked bass lines, mate. And then walked off. Yeah. So we took stage. It was great. Come now, like, last year when we toured together, when I heard we got the Duran tour, it was cool, but here's what was tough. I had to hire a new band from overseas. Right? I had all these emails of like reference footage and like built the session. Here's how it's going to sound, got it all worked out. But we had a handful of days to put a show together, get rehearsed, have tech rehearsal, and be in an arena ready to play. And those were the first shows. Our shows with you were the first shows we did.
Yeah. I remember talking to those guys I remember talking to you going, man, you guys are tight. And you're like, I just met these guys 5 days ago.
Yeah. But the bass player Johnny's a beast, but Sam was just, I remember when we had 2 days with just me and Johnny, the drummer, because I really feel like the drums needed to get worked out. It's just me and him. Then we brought Sam in. And I was just, I had my fingers crossed behind my back because I wasn't going to do the thing like play for me, I just trusted the stuff I had looked into, and he comes and he just destroys it.
Yeah.
And I was just like a kid in a candy store, man. I was so happy once the band was like together and tight. And ever since then, we've just had the best time.
Yeah. And on top of that, musically, they're both at the top of their game.
Phenomenal players. Yeah.
Like everyone knows, you have to get along with them personally, and they both, are amazing guys.
Yeah,
like I said, I gravitated towards you guys on the ferry that day. I sat down with you. I'm like, I'm just going to hang out with you guys for the rest of the day.
When I hired them, we did Zoom meetings, and I had all these people, and I did a bunch of Zoom meetings with people. And this one question I asked every one of them was like, do you enjoy touring? Do you like playing live? And I would be damned. Some of them were like, it's not my favorite thing, but, you got to do what you got to do in this industry. I'm like, nope. Nope. Like, I wanted people that were just fucking stoked to be out on the road, stoked to be able to give them the chance to do this, and not a day that we were out where those guys anything but 100.
Yeah.
And it's about the hang. I always preach that with people in positions of hiring other people. The hang is so important. They could be killer musicians, but if the hang is bad, it's not going to work.
Lisa has heard that on more than one occasion.
Yeah. I've never heard of that's a thing. Yeah, it is from him. I've heard.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Make or break.
Yeah, it is. And I learned that lesson early, I think around my 30s when I started like realizing I had some shitty friends. I was like, I got to get rid of this. It's just bad. The energy in a room, it's just, if one person is just like a bad seed, it just kind of infects the whole thing.
Just sucks out the energy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you guys were the best. Everyone, I feel like everyone that I could tell that was out with you are out there for the same thing. They're there to do a job, and everyone gets it done, but they're cool people.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah. Dude, you took us under, you gave us like I still have the cord you gave me to connect my pedal to my power supply.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I'm gonna need that back.
Yeah, okay. Give me your address. Well, I have a relationship with Line 6 now, so
I'm joking, man.
I'll have
joking.
them at you 10.
I just remember you standing on stage staring at your pedal board and going, "Hey, is everything cool?" You're like, "Man, I need this thing." I'm like, "Come with me."
Yeah.
Come with me.
You open like all your things. Hey,
I'm
did you end up getting talking to the UA people?
Yes.
Cool.
I ended up getting the Lion.
Right.
Yeah,
They just released a 5150 pedal.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. Man.
That company has changed the way I interface with gear and music. Yeah, it's a cool company.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. I know when I told Lisa, I was like, "Hey, we're going to talk to this." She got pretty excited, Yeah. So.
Oh, that's lovely. I don't get to do any of this anymore. There's no reason I would be in a place where I could talk about this stuff. So it's been nice to kind of go back and through memories and think about it. So thanks for having me on the show.
For sure, man. Where can people find you online and find out about this 20th anniversary show?
So I mean, I'm not really active on the Facebook, but the Instagram is active. It's at VHS or Beta, one word. And Asterworks is now this weird label in LA, so they don't really have anything about their old bands on it. So I mean, we're just kind of a relic of old and age, sitting around getting finer with each year. But no, the show's cool. It's in Louisville on November 30. I mean, it's if people are in the vicinity, I know some people are traveling in for the show, but I talked to my old booking agent. Maybe, if some other offers come in and we do some of the bigger markets, I'll give you guys a call. Put you on the list. Come hang out with us.
Right on. Our podcast, it's called Is Breakfast Included? And if we were having breakfast, which we have, but what would you have?
My breakfast of choice. Man, that's tough. Because I'm Asian, I'm going to go with, I've been making, so you asked earlier what I'm into that keeps my head cooking. So I've been making this, do you know what kanji is? Kanji is it's like a rice porridge. In most Asian cultures have it. A lot of cultures have it, but it's basically cooked down rice to where it becomes almost like soupy and gelatinous.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious. So I make mine, but I've been making mine with chicken pho broth. Oh. So it's this aromatic, chickeny, and I top it with Chinese black vinegar and 6.5 minute egg and ginger. So it's a mix between kanji and chicken pho, and it's super it's the best. If you ever have a hangover, it's the best hangover food. It's just also just a very delicious bowl of food. So if you're ever in Louisville and you want to try it, you come over to my house.
All right, man.
Sounds great.
Well, we're just gonna take that as an open invitation.
Yeah,
there it is.
So when there's that knock on that door, where's the
day after your show, cook it up.
We're here. What about your breakfasts? I know this is about me, but I need to hear what your breakfast is.
I always change. I usually do boring oatmeal or something.
Yeah.
Just, nothing exciting. Sometimes if I go out with Bernie, I'll get French toast maybe. But
Okay.
Bernie's a pancake guy, always.
Always. Pancakes.
Really?
Side of bacon. Yeah. Nothing even fancy, nothing in my pancakes, just buttermilk pancakes.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I love them.
You can't get enough, can you? They never get old.
They never get old, man. And I've had some bad pancakes, but even bad pancakes are good pancakes.
That's kind of how I am with pizza. Even shitty pizzas, it's pizza.
Oh, man, we know pizza, don't we?
Oh, I know. Yeah. For sure.
Well, brother, we appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
It was good talking to you, Craig.
Yeah.
Right on. Craig Pfunder. What a cool guy, right? I know what it sounds like I'm saying with his name, but it's Pfundr, Pfunder. It sounds like I'm saying thunder, but I'm not. Anyway, super interesting guy, man. We've known each other for a couple of years, and you know how you gravitate to people that you gravitate to, you know, you have a connection with them. And Craig and I are really good friends. You can check out what he's doing on Instagram at VHS or Beta. Make sure you click on the link there to find out how to get tickets to the VHS or Beta Night on Fire 20th anniversary concert taking place November 30th at Headliners Music Hall in Louisville, Kentucky. If you find yourself in that neighborhood, man, you don't want to miss it. Check him out, see what he's all about. If Jake Shears is coming to your town, you're going to see Craig up there just rocking out. Also, that's an amazing show. I witnessed it for like 12 shows, and it was an amazing show. All right, guys, while you're online, check out our website, isbreakfast.com. You can link to our YouTube, our Apple Podcast links, our store. Stop by, go get a shirt. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Check out everything we've done, and make sure you rate and review the show. All right, guys, I'm done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.